Hello and welcome to the Three Towers podcast coming from the beautiful towers at Southport Central. I'm Chris Griffith.
I'm John Butler.
Today we're going to have a look at things that have moved already since the new body corporate manager, Active Body Corporate, has taken charge here at Southport Central. As you know from our previous episodes, or if you happen to have been talking with people around the place, we have a new body corporate manager, Earl Muir. We interviewed him on the preceding episode. Earl is wanting to talk and get to know all the owners and everyone else around here, John. He's on a big reconnaissance type of exercise.
Finding out what's what and who's who.
Not only that, we're starting to see some changes. Now, it's always true that the Body Corporate Committee is the governing body here, but the Body Corporate Management does have some operations which it can conduct itself. It can always talk to the committee and bring the committee round to a point of view on some executive issues. And it seems like Earl and Active have been busy on that front.
Yes, I think it stands out that Earl has a lot of experience as a body corporate manager, and he has some worthwhile suggestions to make to the committee. And from what he says, they seem to be quite amenable to many of them.
Yes, we had a 40-minute chat with him in the previous episode of the Three Towers podcast.
We've taken over the contract for the body corporate management of Southport Central Residences, and we've been transitioning that role over the past few months.
He's very engaging, he's got a lot of knowledge, and he seems very friendly and approachable for owners to
Absolutely,
talk to.
yes.
But let's just start with some of the things that have changed. First one is the charges for getting body corporate documents. Now, you may not ever want to get hold of a body corporate document, but the charges before were pretty prohibitive. For example, John, to get a copy of the entire list of owners, which owners have a right to have, which is called the owner's roll, costs more than $1,000. That's not pocket money for me. Anyway.
No, I think it was about $1,200. It really stopped people from wanting to proceed to get a copy.
Yeah, it did. That money we all felt was way beyond what the cost of producing the roll was, obviously. So we're a bit annoyed, if I can put it politely, about that. And now Active Body Corporate is charging us around $30 or $40 for the roll. That's a huge discount from $1,200.
It is. It's enormous. And that will flow through to any records of the body corporate that any owner wants to see.
And we can get it as a PDF. When I initially got the roll to try and avoid the $1,000 cost, I wrote it out by hand. It took about 4 hours. I've got still got the books there with everyone's addresses and that taken from the computer and written by hand. We couldn't even copy it electronically. We couldn't use a USB.
That's correct. We probably should make the point that the reason you were interested in getting that information was simply so you could talk to other owners.
Yeah, so we could have a newsletter. Before that, it was almost impossible to have a newsletter here because we couldn't get the names and addresses of everyone about that.
It had been suggested that one of our owners, in trying to get hold of that owner's role, wanted to be able to sell it to advertisers. He never had any such intention, of course, but...
it was really hard work for something that shouldn't be hard work. But anyway, that is number one of 5 changes that we're talking about. Number 2 is the owner's sinking fund will finally receive dividends. Now, this is something that we campaigned for, so it's a little bit of a win for you and I over this.
The pressure has been applied and it's working.
As many of you would know, the committee decided it wanted to invest in property, but decided to invest in properties within our complex, which is not really allowed for by law. So the lawyer got together with the committee and they formed a company that could own these properties, and the body corporate would be a shareholder in the company owning the properties. That's what we have with these 4 apartments. Now, that's caused a lot of angst, but also since we've had those properties, we haven't received any dividends, yet the actual letting of the apartments, John, has been a pretty profitable business when you look at the sums.
Yes, obviously the rental has made money, but that hasn't come back to the body corporate as dividends. there seems to have been a scheme whereby money is returned to the body corporate for so-called management services.
Yes, we've seen money return from the 4 apartments via the company to the body corporate as management fees. We've also seen legal fees. Now, if you add up over 4 years those management fees and legal fees that the company has incurred, it's more than $250,000.
It's a lot of money.
It's a huge amount of money. And that's for a company that's not doing very much. I mean, there's other expenses that are incurred in the letting of the 4 apartments, but they're actually listed as separate expenses. So we chased the issue of why these huge expenses, and we came to the conclusion really they were accounting records or accounting entries for what should have been dividends, and it was going to the admin fund and not to the sinking fund. So what's going to happen now is that we'll get proper dividends and they'll go to the sinking fund where the money came from to buy the apartments in the first place.
Yeah, it was interesting to hear that Earl had taken that up with the committee and suggested perhaps it should be straight out dividends as it was always intended to be, and not some sort of management services that were never actually provided.
Well, it was pretty blatant in the end that you could pretty easily see what was happening, because the balance sheet at the bottom magically came to almost zero every year, 4 years in a row.
Yes, the company made no money on the surface.
No, and it was returning these big sums. So that looks like they've agreed that that was what had happened. And while we have these 4 apartments, and it's contentious how long we should have them anyway, we will now get the benefit of those dividends, and that's really important.
And they will go to the sinking fund where they belong. That was the whole point of getting those apartments.
Yes, the money used to buy those apartments was bought from the sinking fund, which is money that owners pay in their levies for actual repairs and maintenance, and the money came out of that, and it should not have come out of that if the sinking fund was not going to get the benefit.
Well, that's right. We took $1.5 million out of the sinking fund to bolster the sinking fund, but it hasn't happened yet.
No. So anyway, that's number 2. Let's move to number 3. Owners will now get the proper certificate, which came into being last August with changes to state legislation. Yep. So that when you sell a property, you need to have this body corporate certificate. There was a lot of toing and froing between our committee, the lawyer, about the legal validity of the certificates. Do you remember that?
The body corporate solicitor said that the law is an ass, basically, is what he was saying. It doesn't make sense. It asks the body corporate to do something that's impossible. We don't actually have those records, so therefore we can't comply.
He argued that part of the information needed for the certificates had to come from owners. And he said he was approaching the Attorney General about that. The new active body corporate said they will give owners the proper Form 33 certificates. Before that, you would get a letter excusing you from the certificate that you could present on the basis that the body corporate couldn't provide the information.
Yes,
so if you're selling...
from Earl that it doesn't seem to be a problem.
Yeah.
We'll do it, he said. Yeah.
They're able to do that. Before that, you'd had to get this exemption notice. So at least we're now complying with that new legislation in Queensland. The next one, it isn't done and dusted, but it's something that is now seriously on the agenda here, and that is the introduction of electronic voting. Now, that requires a motion to pass, and we've had several attempts at getting a motion up for electronic voting that have failed. But it so happens that Active Body Corporate has electronic voting operating in, it seems, every other body corporate that they manage.
Yes.
And they were a bit curious as to why it hadn't happened here. Well, it's a long history.
We'd be curious too.
Yeah,
we actually had a motion approved at an AGM to have electronic voting, but a couple of years later, that motion still wasn't acted on, and the committee put up a motion, which was carried, to not have electronic voting. So we're all terribly confused about that.
Yeah, this discussion's been running for more than half a decade. I think about 2019 was the original
again, talking
motion.
about Earl. He says, oh yeah, no problem.
It has to, of course, go to a AGM or whatever
Yeah.
to have electronic voting, which will make voting much simpler than getting the voting paper, tearing out the voting slip from the AGM, which is what you have to do, then filling it in, scanning it, and then attaching it to an email and sending it off, which is the paper manual method. Of course, with electronic voting, it's much simpler, but I think it's important to tell owners that you don't have to use electronic voting if you don't want to. In fact, it's in the legislation, it's in the accommodation module legislation. It says the exercising of voting, that you've got the choice of submitting a vote personally, by proxy, by casting a hard copy vote, or by casting an electronic vote. So if you don't want to have electronic voting, if you personally don't want to use electronic voting, you can still cast a hard copy. And I think that's important for many owners who find that difficult as much as casting a normal vote.
Yes, the legislation is very clear. If you still want to vote the usual way, on paper, email, whatever, you can do it. That's specifically provided for in the legislation. But for the people who would prefer to just tick boxes on their screen electronically, it's marvellous.
With that provision, John, it doesn't seem to me there's much of a downside to bringing in electronic voting.
No,
if you can do it the way you personally want it.
Oh, there's no problem with it at all.
Yeah.
It's a sensible thing to do.
It's now widely used throughout body corporates throughout.
This is 2026.
It is 2026. Gosh, time
do
flies,
it.
doesn't it? So that's number 4. Now, the next one, number 5, is another very important development, and that is Earl Muir has said a couple of times that we will be this year getting a sinking fund forecast. Now, if you don't know what that means, it's a document that's prepared by a professional which lists out all the maintenance that has to be done in the 3 towers for, say, up to the next 15 years. It projects a long way into the future, but it gives a projection, and also then how much it's going to cost, and even recommendation for levies to meet those costs.
Yes, so we know how much we have to put away to be able to meet
to do our maintenance.
Obligations.
Now, before anyone thinks that we're trying to advocate levies going up, what we're saying is if we can set the levies correctly, and if the body corporate operates stringently in terms of how it manages its finances, A, will get a more gentler rise of levies if and when they have to rise, but B, we won't have, which is what I think we're heading to, sailing to, like the Titanic, towards a special levy, the way things are going here.
Nobody wants to have to suddenly go to their bank and pull out $1,000 or more, and sometimes it could be a lot more.
Sometimes these levies can be $5,000, $10,000, $15,000 if it's a long way away.
In some body corporates, the owners simply cannot handle it.
We tend to feel that if we didn't get that forecast properly and adjust the levies, then we'd be having to charge, or the committee would be having to charge pretty hefty special levies to make sure we had enough money for maintenance.
Well, I think that we've only just dodged a bullet. Everybody knows that our first quarter levy this year went up enormously, and that is really surprising because it shouldn't have happened. We should have been putting away enough money regularly.
We never had an increase in the last few years.
No, and that was lauded as a great thing. It was marvellous.
And everyone, look, I would agree that the idea of keeping the levies down as much as possible is a great aspiration. It's what we all aspire to.
But not when you suddenly have to increase your levy by 30% in the first quarter of 2026.
Yeah.
It's just not right. So we need the sinking fund forecast so we know what we're likely to have to spend so that we can budget for it, so we can avoid, as you say, a special levy that can run to tens of thousands of dollars.
And if that document's public to us owners, that is, then we do have the chance to say, well, in our view, we think that idea of maintenance at that time is a bit excessive. We can have the debate, and people can vote on whether particular items can be deferred or not, or whatever the situation is. At the moment, we do have maintenance. There's no doubt about it. We see some maintenance being done. There's some that isn't done for various reasons, but we don't have access to really the schedule, how it's worked out, what the costs are, and the projections going up to 15 years. And that's an enormous change that is brought about by having this sinking fund forecast and having that as an available document.
I think we have to make the point too that the sinking fund forecast that we do have was prepared before COVID. And we all know that everything increased tremendously in cost as a result of COVID. Everything shut down, costs went up.
Yes, in fact, we have a little clip to show you of our previous body corporate manager saying that document is valid until about 2033, 15 years thereafter when it was first. She said it was valid for another 15 years.
The current sinking fund goes for 15 years from 2010. But anyway, the owners vote at it's what the owners vote for the report.
In spite of the impact of COVID, and in spite of the fact that we now have a war in the Middle East that is having exactly the same effect as COVID. Costs are going up.
Yeah, we all, of course, want this war to end quickly. It's very expensive for everyone, and it's already concerning for the construction industry because they depend on the delivery of goods to construction sites. That requires a truck to use fuel or diesel or whatever. And there's been talking
to the supermarkets.
Yeah, and food at the supermarket. It's very pervasive. So you have to have those costs actually be able to be revised, and particularly with events like COVID and, as you said, the war in the Middle East. So we'll be at least able to have an idea of what we're up for initially and go from there.
Yeah, that's a major achievement. Thank you, Earl.
Thank you very much, Earl. So really 5 to get going, 5 achievements so far with the new active body corporate
in a very short time.
In a short time, and that is a good omen going forward, that will have a strong and transparent management, which we desperately need here, because after all, we are a $1 billion business. Our towers are valued for insurance at more than $1 billion now, and we pay insurance premiums of more than $1 million. So we are a $1 billion business. John, we have to really be professional in how it's managed.
Absolutely, yes.
All right, well, that's enough from us for today. Thank you for watching another episode of the Three Towers podcast. There should be, by now, you should see a little subscribe button on there, the message that you get from every podcast that you actually watch. But you should be able to subscribe to the series, and also you'll get the podcast through the Facebook group and via email. There's a mail out to owners that if you're not on that, let us know, and we can make sure you subscribe to that as well. So there's 3 ways of actually getting this podcast. So thank you very much, and see you in the next episode. Yes. Bye from me, Chris.
And me, John. Thank you for watching. I hope this has been interesting for you. We'll be back.
Bye for now. Bye-bye.